The wind that night could have cut through bone. She stood there, trembling, wrapped in a torn shawl, cheeks red from cold, asking only, "Can I sleep here tonight?" I looked at her, at the frost in her hair and the fear in her eyes, and said softly, "Stay forever. If you love stories of courage, kindness, and unexpected love in the Wild West, hit like and subscribe, because this one will remind you what mercy looks like when the world forgets it." It was the kind of night that stripped the land bare. Wind howling across the plains, snow falling so heavy it swallowed sound. I was finishing chores in the barn when I heard a faint knock on the cabin door, soft but desperate. "My name's Thomas Hale, a rancher widowed 5 winters back, more used to silence than company." When I opened the door, I found her standing there, young, maybe 20 or so, bundled in rags that weren't fit for autumn, let alone the heart of a Montana storm. Her cheeks were raw from wind, her hands trembling around a small cloth bundle. Her eyes, round, blue, scared, met mine and didn't look away. "Can I sleep here tonight?" she whispered. I could tell she'd rehearsed those words, bracing for rejection. I stared at her, trying to make sense of how someone so young had ended up out here alone. "You're half frozen," I said. "Get inside before you turn to ice." She hesitated, as if expecting I'd change my mind, then stepped in slowly. The warmth of the fire hit her face, and tears welled up before she could stop them. Her dress was too thin, her boots torn. She was heavy-set, the kind of woman folks in town sneered at when she walked past, pretending not to, but their eyes always lingered too long. I recognized that look, the one of someone who'd spent their life trying to make themselves smaller for others' comfort. I poured her coffee and said, "You can stay till the storm clears." She nodded, holding the cup in both hands like it was gold. When she spoke again, her voice cracked. "My name's May." "Thomas," I replied, setting another log on the fire. Outside, the wind screamed, but in that small cabin, something softened. I didn't ask where she came from or who'd sent her wandering. Sometimes, the only kindness a man can give is silence by morning. The world outside was buried in white. May was still asleep by the hearth, curled beneath a blanket too small for her frame, breathing slow, steady. I set coffee on the table and watched the sunlight crawl across the floorboards. She woke with a start, half expecting me to be gone, and when she saw the food laid out, she froze. "You don't have to feed me," she said softly. "You already did enough." I shook my head. "You look like you haven't eaten in days." She looked down, shame flickering in her eyes. "People don't like feeding someone like me." She whispered. The words hit harder than I expected. "Then they're fools," I said simply. "Eat, Dot." She hesitated, then did. And the way she cried between bites near broke me in half. Between mouthfuls, she told me pieces of her story. Her father died 2 winters back, leaving debts behind. Her mother remarried a man who made it clear there wasn't room for a girl her size in his house. So she'd walked out, walked west, walked until her feet bled, and when the snow came, she just kept walking. Listening to her, I realized the world had done more harm to her than hunger ever could. "You don't have to keep walking anymore," I said. She looked up, tears spilling again. "You don't even know me?" "I don't need to," I said quietly. "You knocked on my door. That's enough." For the first time, she smiled. A small, trembling thing, but real. That night, when she sang softly to herself by the fire, I realized the cabin hadn't felt this alive in years. Weeks passed, and the snow began to melt from the fences, leaving behind mud and wildflowers trying to grow through it. May stayed, at first out of necessity, then because I asked her to. The cabin became warmer, brighter. She helped mend clothes, fed the animals, and laughed in ways that made the walls forget their loneliness. The neighbors started whispering, of course. Thomas took in that big girl. They'd say at the general store, their voices dripping with judgment. I ignored them. She worked harder than any hand I'd hired, never complaining even when her hands cracked from cold water. One evening, I caught her staring at herself in the window's reflection, frowning. "I know what they say about me," she murmured. "They've always said it." I set my coffee down and said, "Let him talk. You're the kindest soul I've ever known, and that's worth more than looks or gossip." She blinked back tears. "No one's ever said that to me before." I smiled faintly. Then I reckon they were all blind. The silence that followed wasn't awkward. It was soft, fragile, like a secret being shared with the firelight. As winter faded, so did her fear. She began humming while she worked, baking bread that filled the cabin with the smell of home, and I found myself hoping the spring never came, because I didn't want her to leave when it did. When spring came, May packed her small bundle and stood by the door, eyes full of sadness. "You've done enough, Thomas," she said softly. "It's time I move on." I looked at her, the sunlight tracing her hair like gold. "Move on where?" She gave a trembling smile. "Anywhere. I've never belonged anywhere, but I'll find something." I stepped closer, heart tight. "You already found it. You belong here." She shook her head, tears threatening. "You're just being kind." "No," I said, voice rough. "I'm being honest. You made this house a home again. You brought laughter where there was silence." Her lip quivered. "I don't know what to say." I took her hands, calloused and warm. "Say yes," I whispered. "Stay forever." For a long moment, the only sound was the wind through the window. Then she nodded, breaking into quiet tears as I pulled her close. Outside, the last snow melted from the fences. Inside, the fire burned steady. I realized then, it wasn't pity that brought her to my door that night. It was fate. And sometimes fate knocks softly and says, "Can I sleep here tonight?" If this story touched your heart, like and subscribe, because kindness is the greatest love the West ever knew.